Hello and welcome to the video. Recently, governments have had to borrow billions of pounds, dollars and euros in order to finance their expensive relief packages. But where does all this money come from? Who is financing all this debt? And what on earth are we going to do about paying it all back? Today, we take a look at the intriguing world of government finance. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ollie and this is Economics Unlocked. When the government needs to borrow money, it has two options. Firstly, it can use its overdraft at the Bank of England, but it can also sell government bonds. Now, the UK government's overdraft works just like any other, but as you can see from this graph, the UK government doesn't use it much. In fact, not since the financial crisis of 2008. It's called the Ways and Means Facility, and it's used as a normal way of financing day-to-day government spending. But this overdraft has become only an emergency measure over recent decades, because the facility is, well, a bit dangerous. Because this type of financing is just another way of printing money. So overuse can lead to massive amounts of inflation, just like in Zimbabwe or the Weimar Republic. If the government doesn't like using their overdraft, then they have the second option, which is to sell bonds. What's a bond? Well, it's a type of IOU which the government sells at auction to make money. A typical bond is simply a promise from the government to pay out a fixed amount of money at a fixed time in the future. For example, a 10-year bond could promise to pay out £1,000 in 10 years' time. Banks then decide how much they'd be willing to pay now in order to get £1,000 in 10 years' time, and then they bid against each other in order to buy these bonds. The lump sum of money is called the principal, and the time it's paid out is called the maturity date. Often, bonds will have extra payments called coupons, which are smaller amounts of money paid more regularly until the bond matures. For example, a 10-year bond may pay out £100 every year for 10 years, in addition to paying out the principal at the end. So, who buys these things? Well, most of the time, they're bought by pension funds and insurance companies as a safe way of investing their money. You see, buying a bond from a government like the UK or the US is a very safe way to invest and carries almost no risk. And to make things even better, if an investor can't wait until the bond matures to get their money back, then they can sell their bond early to someone else and make money that way. In a crisis like a pandemic, investors are really worried about all their risky investments, so they buy more of these government bonds instead because they're so safe. And this means the government can make a lot of money by selling these bonds in a crisis. Is there anything dangerous about this way of raising money? Well, yes. You see, in times of crisis, the Bank of England has taken to creating new money and using it to buy up these government bonds in order to stabilise the economy. I've done a whole video explaining that, so you can watch that next, but this is just another way of printing money and comes with all the risks of inflation. It's okay to print money in a recession because usually in a recession you're worried about deflation, which is the opposite of inflation. So creating more money actually helps the situation. A weird problem with this way of doing things comes from the fact that the UK government owns the Bank of England. So when the Bank of England buys these government bonds, the UK effectively owes money to itself. And the Bank of England has bought a lot of government bonds recently, £875 billion worth of them. And with the UK's total debt at about 2.2 trillion right now, that means roughly 40% of UK debt is owed to itself. So government debt is complicated. But what does this mean when it comes to paying it back? Well, it's all to do with who owns each bit of the debt. Let's start with all the debt the Bank of England owns. The Bank of England has laid out a rough roadmap for how it intends to wind down the debt it owns after the economic crisis has passed. And while it is possible that they sell some bonds back to investors, it is likely the UK government will never need to pay any of this debt back. When it comes to the rest of the debt, there are significant drawbacks to paying it back. For a start, a significant portion of the UK government debt is part of the National Savings and Investment Scheme, including premium bonds, and it doesn't make sense to deny savers access to these forms of investment, so there's no need to pay this part of the debt back. The bulk of the UK government's debt, however, is held by pension funds and insurance companies as a safe way of investing their money, and paying back this part of debt denies these firms access to safe investments, and so increases the risks they have to take with their clients' money. UK banks would have a similar predicament, as they often hold large amounts of government bonds in order to boost their liquidity ratios. And of course there's a huge opportunity cost to paying back debt, because any money spent paying back debt is money that can't be spent on other things. For example, investing in new technologies could reduce costs to government departments or increase tax revenues in the future, thus potentially covering the costs of any debt. But there are costs to large amounts of debt. Crucially, interest payments could rise, costing the government billions of pounds every year. If another economic crisis were to occur, then the government would want excess demand for its debt so it could borrow and protect the economy. And lastly, there's an issue of crowding out, which means the more government debt investors own, the less money they have to spend on other investments, such as with growing businesses and entrepreneurs who need to finance their operations. So while there's no need to pay back all the government debt, it makes sense to pay back some in order to reduce interest payments and ensure sufficient demand should they need to borrow in the future. Many of us like to think of government spending and taxation in the same way as we do with household spending and debt, but the reality is far more complex, and the fact that the government may not need to pay it all back means that these huge figures you see on the news might not be as big of a problem as you think. Thank you very much for watching the video today. If you've enjoyed it, then you can let YouTube know by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel, but otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Hello and welcome to the video. Hello and welcome to the video. Recently, governments have been borrowing in order to finance their expensive relief packages. My name is Ollie, and this is Economics Unlocked. And this is Economics Unlocked. There's a car with a dog in it. Many of us like to think of government spinning. That's a whole other video.